amazing startups today. And we have 3 amazing judges joining us today, helping us assess which one is the most promising climate solution. And as for what's at stake for founders here, we have a range of early stage founders joining us today. And the grand prize for the winner at the end, which we'll announce at the end of the summit tomorrow, will be a lifetime membership in the Impact Hustlers community, which gives you access to regular mastermind groups, to sessions with investors, experienced founders, to our investor matching tool, and also about $250,000 worth of discounts with things like AWS and Stripe and so on, all these good tools that we all use. So again, just a quick announcement to anybody that's judging to share the screen. But I will start with Samia, welcome, and Shilpi. Samia from Climate VC, if you want to introduce yourself briefly, I'll hand over to you, and then we'll start with the first pitch after that.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Great. I'm Samia. I've been an investor for, I think 17 years now. I started out investing in the public markets, as well as doing some private debt investments. I have, in my previous role, worked in energy trading as well, and I've now moved over to the venture side, specifically focused on climate and impact. A senior principal at Climate VC, where we make pre-seed and seed investments in companies that have some path towards 10 megatons of CO2e reduction. So some path towards that. And we are an impact first fund and focus mostly on UK-based investments.
Amazing. Shilpi, over to you.
Yes. Great to meet you, Samia. I don't think we've ever met. I'm Shilpi. I'm a partner with Third Sphere. We're also pre-seed seed investors. We also, in addition to having an equity platform, also have a debt vehicle. My background's been in early stage hardware. So both as an investor and first employee, have worked with about 12 hardware companies, kind of commercializing into industrial commercial environments primarily, to bring that perspective. And as a platform, we're definitely trying to play a role in catalyzing systems change and focused on climate impact primarily, but looking across all different sectors as a way to make that happen: built environment, transportation, energy systems, food waste and water, and all of that. Thanks for having me.
Got it. For both of you briefly, we're waiting for one more judge, but for very briefly for you, if you were to put out a request for startups, are there any themes or topic that you're particularly excited about? You mentioned a few already, but anything that comes to mind beyond that?
Oh, I would say we're mostly, like you, Shilpi, we're mostly hard tech focused. So we just like big impact. So if you can have, you have a direct path towards CO2e reduction, and you could show that path, then we would love to hear about you. And that's our sort of number one criteria.
Yeah, I'd say a little bit different than a lot of the climate ecosystem, really look for business models that exist outside of voluntary credits and kind of the corporate backed drawdown. And so looking for more solutions that fit into existing budgets and systems change from industrial needs outside of sustainability. And so trying to build an understanding of what the revenue model can look like for a company, that's not based on an impact focus only.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. So Mia, our third judge, may have some issues joining in, but that shouldn't stop us. We will make sure to share the pitches with her as well, so you'll still be judged by her as well. And for Shilpi and Samia, you should have a link in your email inbox where you can start judging the pitches as well. So perfect. First off, we have Claire Pluart from Carbon Yield joining us. Claire, if you can request to speak, I'll get you on stage and we'll get ready for your 5-minute pitch, followed by a 5-minute Q&A. Claire, if you request to join video and audio on the screen, we'll get you on. All right, I see that she's there, but I can't. There you go. Welcome, Claire. All right, over to you. You can share your screen at the bottom, and I'll hand over to you from here.
Thank you. Thank you for having us here. Sorry, I'm trying to share my screen. I don't know that I have that as an option. Oh, yep, here we go. Here's me. First time on Hopin. Okay. Hello. Well, thank you all for having us. My name is Claire Pluart. I'm a co-founder of Carbon Yield. And Carbon Yield recognizes that we need to start thinking about conventional farming as the coal plants of the 21st century. Expensive, dirty, and dying. We're building a platform to ensure that the alternative, regenerative agriculture, becomes the norm, enabling our farmers to prosper while unlocking an essential climate solution. It has become too expensive to farm conventionally. In the US over the last decade, more than half of farmers lost money consecutively for 10 years. Industrial farming strips the life from the soil and the roots. And as the soil degrades, farmers are adding more and more expensive fertilizers to eke out the same yields. This vicious cycle is terrible for the climate. More than 30% of emissions originated in our working lands. And we need to get back to our roots and build a better food system that works for everyone. Regenerative agriculture is the solution. We need to literally regenerate our soil. Practices like cover cropping, avoiding tillage, integrating livestock can help bring back roots, fertility, life, and carbon to the soil. And these practices wean farmers from expensive chemicals, make farming more profitable overall, and make farming more resilient to extreme weather, and allows us to keep producing healthy, nourishing food for our communities. The challenge lies in transition. So there are upfront costs for equipment and seeds, a learning curve for new crop rotations, and the transitional resources available from carbon programs are mostly inaccessible and aren't providing enough value. There's a lot of uncertainty the moment a grower steps out of the system that they know with an established supply chain and a column of support behind them. Carbon Yield is establishing a new pillar of support behind these growers so they can confidently transition to regenerative agriculture at scale. We operate the hub to enable that farmers make regenerative decisions while considering the value available to them from corporations who are interested in their regenerative footprint, products, and story. We leverage more than 15 years of experience in carbon markets to help farmers establish eligibility for new programs, register projects, sell credits. And we're connecting farmers with community of peers who selling their regenerative grains and helping them source inputs. Build a responsive platform that's independent and advocates for growers. Here are some quick mock-ups of what the hub will look like when it's fully built. We aim to keep the app lean enough to work in a low connectivity environment while allowing growers to integrate new revenue and cost savings into their everyday farm management decisions. I'll give a quick example of how our hub has created value for one of our farm partners. Luke is a 6th-generation farmer who's taking over for his dad in Indiana. And he's ready to improve his soil so that it can be productive for his kids and their kids. He reached out to us because he was unsure of how to do that, and he wanted to understand the most valuable opportunities for his farm. We helped him model the benefits of a new management program that added rye to a no-till system, and we showed that there was money to be made through generating carbon offsets. We expect Luke to make $65 an acre in net profits from selling new cover crops in his rotation, saving on fertilizer, and earning new carbon revenue. Our revenue model is aligned with creating this financial impact for growers like Luke by brokering those transactions that drive meaningful value on the farm. We're in commissions on those transactions, and our platform will start as a freemium subscription plan for farmers. We've already been doing this work on the ground, actively working with farms representing over 100,000 acres across the US, and generated over $270,000 in revenue from farm customers and $12,000 in monthly recurring revenue from corporates that are interested in decarbonizing their footprint. Our food brand partners have ambitious climate goals that they are frankly struggling to meet. We've already worked with Starbucks, Nestle, and suppliers of Annie's mac and cheese to help them meet and account for their supply chain climate goals. And this market is exploding. Food brands are committed to more than 75 million acres of regenerative farm transitions, which is 15 times the current organic market. In order to build this new hub, we are fundraising to finance the build out of our software. This will give us 12 months of revenue for 12 months of runway, for 500K, and help us double our user base and further automate and digitize the onboarding experience for our farm customers. Our founding team is myself, and my co-founder, Sam. We met at Kellogg and have deep experience in carbon markets, agriculture, and leading impact-focused institutions. Sam has produced and sold more than 2 million tons of offset credits at a previous venture, and we've consulted with some of the top agricultural institutions. We're excited to bring into our ecosystem to provide services to our customers. I'm really happy to be here with you today, where we can leverage our expertise and deep passion for this work to transform agriculture so that farmers are sustained precisely because of the way they take care of our most precious natural resource, the soil, in our working lands. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire. I'll hand over for questions and challenges, feedback. Who wants to go first?
I have a question.
I'm sorry.
So, Claire, I think I get the concept of the hub as a resource for farmers. Can you talk a little bit about how you make specific recommendations and what is the data input that makes your suggestions specific to the farmer and the land that they might be bringing to regenerative practices?
Definitely. So data plays a huge role in the backbone of all of the recommendations. Farming is very geographic specific. So you kind of have to know where the farmer is, a little bit about their history of how they've managed their land, and a little bit about what they're interested in introducing. So with most of the data that we leverage is about where they're selling their current grains and the just general management history, which we can use in a biogeochemical model to work through, the greenhouse gas accounting piece. So it starts with a small amount of information that we can build some offerings based on their location and their crop rotations. And then from there, it gets much more in depth on the data piece. Does that answer your question, Shilpi?
Yeah, that was helpful. Thanks.
Thank you, Claire, for the presentation. I have a question quickly. I'm curious just what the customer acquisition strategy looks like as you scale and how you think about acquiring or getting farmers on the platform as you expand geographically and given how fragmented that market looks.
Absolutely. So we've been doing it through 3 primary channels. We've worked with Nori, their carbon removal marketplace, and ESMC. They're both working within the soil carbon sphere, and they get a lot of incoming interest from farmers. They built a lot of advertising, and they can't actually service those farmers to help them do carbon projects and things like that. So in the early days, we've had a ton of referrals from those marketplaces, and that has kind of built out our initial pipeline. And we're currently very oversubscribed and not able to serve everyone in the pipeline. But we've also worked with asset owners who own 100 million acres of land and are interested in transitioning all of that with their individual farmers. So they are very fractured, but they have a single entity owner who owns probably 30,000 acres. And we've also been working with conservation districts, local areas where farmers are very familiar, who they go to them for information. So when they get incoming interest, they can refer them to Carbon Yield, and we can help build out their offering as a small local government without a full suite of services to offer their farmers.
Thanks so much. One last quick question, Samia, if you want to.
Yes, I would love to. Congratulations on getting so much traction already. You haven't even raised your pre-seed round. Congratulations on finishing that presentation in less than 5 minutes. My question is mostly around sort of adequate measurement tools around soil carbon. That's always the biggest challenge with this, right? So how do you do that well? How do you do that better than other people? How do you survive in a market where people aren't doing it right? What's your view on that going forward?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is actually one of our risks because there is a wide variety of approaches. So we're pairing modeling with direct measurement. We're working with a nonprofit in Chicago called the Soil Inventory Project, which is a low lift democratize soil sampling technology. And so on all of our pilot farms, we've done direct measurement at 15 and 30 centimeters. I was just in the field last week drilling into our farm in Indiana. And that way we compare those change over time results of direct measurement with the biogeochemical models that are driving markets right now. I think in the future that hopefully direct measurement will be the actual, it represents the actual change on the land and can create a more rigorous measurement system. We've also been testing some new satellite technologies that are, modeling estimates for, each farm field and kind of trying to pair all three of those to create a very backed product so you actually can account for those changes on the land.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Claire, for joining us. And you see where our mechanism of splitting this up into the idea stage and launch stage is flawed with your example of having generated so much traction. Obviously we shouldn't just think in terms of funding rounds, but in terms of building great businesses. So thanks for joining. Next up, I'll ask Danica from SmartFin to come on screen, and Claire, feel free to leave the session. There's Danica. I'll get you on stage, where she should be joining shortly. Danica.
Okay, I am here. Let me just figure out how to share my screen.
Over to you.
Claire, come back. She figured out how to do this. Okay. Okay, I think I have successfully shared my screen. Is that everyone's experience? Yep, got nods. Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you so much. My name is Danica Reinecke, and I'm a co-founder and CEO of SmartFin. The problem that drives SmartFin is that crucial coastal ecosystems are being devastated by climate change as the ocean both warms and acidifies. Over 3 billion people globally live within 50 miles of a coast and directly depend on these ecosystems for food, their livelihoods, and even their physical safety. Although there's a $34 billion market for marine sensing equipment, we just can't get the data that we need to monitor, analyze, and ultimately protect these coastal ecosystems. Equipment like satellites don't work well in shallow coastal waters, and expensive buoys only measure a fixed point, get knocked around in the coastal waves, and are too expensive to deploy in large numbers. Our solution is SmartFin, a patented surf and stand-up paddleboard fin with GPS, IoT, and temperature and motion sensors. It's not a wearable, but a gearable used by citizen scientists to collect both performance and environmental data. Through gearables, we're establishing a new category at the intersection of sports performance and coastal monitoring. Like wearables have had a huge impact on health data, gearables integrate seamlessly with the user's experience, but will have a positive impact on climate science. Crowdsourcing coastal data in this way is an elegant and optimal solution to the problem. Firstly, because our low-cost sensors can be deployed globally in large numbers, democratizing coastal monitoring. Second, we're getting data where there currently are none. And you see kind of an example of this from our pilot in the image on the left. These data inform decisions that impact conservation, restoration, policy, and more. And third, we're building a global community of ocean advocates large enough to meet the need. For a user, SmartFin acts like any other premium fin. It gathers data automatically while in the water and has been tested and loved even by pro surfers, so we know there's no loss in performance. The SmartFin app connects users to each other and to the scientific community they're now a part of. Users can view real-time conditions, interact with each other, track their sessions, and find out about research happening locally. Compared to any other option available for activity tracking, SmartFin is the only one that combines specific features for water sports and impact. But how do we know that people want to participate in this kind of thing? Firstly, research shows us that 87% of consumers want customers to integrate environmental concerns into their products. 70% of people want to do more to combat climate change, and over half of consumers are willing to pay more for products that are eco-friendly. We also have real-world traction proving that this can be successful. We ran a pilot with about 250 participants that we got really great validation and feedback from. We've already had about 8 papers published by oceanographers from 4 universities, and our reservation list for the product is over 350 strong. But the 35 million global surfers and paddleboarders are really just the beginning. Our goal is to leverage the power of the ocean-loving community to protect it however they get in the water, whether it's snorkeling, swimming, boating, kite surfing, you name it. Our business model has 2 revenue streams. The first is from selling the device itself to fin customers through distributors who are gear providers like Firewire surfboards. And then on the second hand, we can monetize the data that we're collecting into industries outside of oceanographic research to anywhere that makes decisions based on coastal environments like ports, insurance, fisheries, and more. Our team has expertise ranging from engineering to UI UX design and even to filmmaking. We believe deeply in the power of collaboration. We've gotten support from a few accelerators, and we're building out an advisory board that includes successful entrepreneurs and surf industry representatives. Our next steps are we're raising a pre-seed round that all is in support of our commercial launch. Our aim is to manufacture our first run of 1,000 smart fins and get those into users' hands where we can really start learning a ton. But we need to start now to get there and get smart fins in the water. We address a gap in a large and growing gear market with lots of opportunity to scale, and we have opportunities in emerging markets in marine environmental data. At SmartFin, we're creating ambassadors for coastal ocean health through recreation to democratize coastal monitoring. We're combining the sport you love with the data that we really need to protect the ocean and our planet. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Questions, comments?
I had a quick question. So that's amazing. I love the idea of democratizing coastal monitoring. My question is just on logistics. So what about the areas where you can't surf or paddle?
Yeah. So that's a great question. And so that's part of the reason that surfing was kind of the inception of this idea. But you're right. There are sort of limited in the grand scheme of things, places where you can take a surfboard in the coastal ocean. Places where you can paddleboard opens up a lot more of that. But then as we move on further into our product journey, that's where we make decisions about things like we can continue on this sort of citizen science recreation piece, but then there's also opportunity to attach basically to anything that traverses that environment. So you talk more about boats. Maybe it does at some point become another stationary device that can attach to a pier. So really thinking about how we get as many of these sensors as possible in the coastal zone. But we're so excited about the community building and kind of advocacy piece that's starting with the recreational side really is where our passion is.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a little bit about sorry, I think my audio is bad. I'm curious about the actual data outcomes that become valuable. And so how are you building value on top of the raw data that you're collecting? Have you done any validation on working with, I think both ecosystem organizations like Nature Conservancy and World Wildlife Fund, people who are consuming this data from ecosystem protection, and are there any other buyers on the other side of who would use the platform that you're building, or where does that data live as a result?
Yeah, so 2 examples from oceanographers who are using the data to advance their research, and then one from a port who's using it to measure conservation. So 2 oceanographers who have published using SmartFin data already. The first studies upwelling, so the process by which nutrient-rich water cycles up to the top and other water cycles down to the bottom as it turns over near the coast, which has huge impact on kind of the whole of ecosystem health, but we're not able to measure very well currently when and where those events are happening. And using a SmartFin and temperature even as a proxy for pH has given them really specific understanding of when and where those upwelling events are happening that then the impacts are felt throughout the ecosystem.
And just a quick question, is this generally like open data that is free, or are people used to paying for this type of data from the researcher?
The former, open data that are free.
Yeah.
So the second example from a researcher is using SmartFin to validate satellite sea surface temperatures, particularly so in the open ocean and then near the coast. And then third, we're starting to work with a port who's doing seagrass planting as a climate mitigation strategy. And so temperature is an important metric to assess both the health of their seagrass and then also further down the line to assess the impact of having planted those seagrasses.
Super helpful. Thanks for the use cases. I appreciate the specifics.
Thank you. Mia, you had a question.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually very similar to Shilpi's and kind of, I wonder if you've gotten any validation so far on just kind of like willingness to pay for these data sets, or how you think about pricing the actual data that you're selling to the end customers on the data side. And then also just curious, like what data points you're able to collect and whether it requires any behavior change on the part of the person who's using this smartphone.
Sure. Yeah, so definitely the pricing, the data side is the trickiest part of this. And I think that we still have a lot to learn there. Part of what we're exploring is where, like in what organizations these data are actionable, like who has the ability to interpret them, or if that's something that we need to build out as part of our product and platform. We've also explored partnerships with groups like the Ocean Currency Network, who are using Web3 and blockchain to then basically set up a system where anyone who contributes to data is then reimbursed in some way for their effort when those data are used. And so connecting with that network is also a way for us to monetize the data and even give credit to the surfers and paddleboarders who are participating in a really interesting way. And then secondly, so right now we're gathering temperature and motion. So temperature is pretty clear. Motion data we'll be able to use to model things like waves. But then adding additional sensors in the future for things like dissolved oxygen, chlorophyll. We've even talked about, potentially adding receivers to be able to track species that are tagged. So there's a lot of additional directions that we could go with the sensors that are on board. It doesn't require, for surfers and paddleboarders, any behavior change. It works just like a regular fin. You can put it on your board and you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any pressing last question as well? Samia, I want to give you the opportunity if you want to, but otherwise we'll go.
I guess one other
quick
question is, what's the cost right now of the bomb on your early run?
Yeah, our plan is to have them retail for about $200. So keeping within a reasonable margin of other premium fins, but with this additional capability.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're going to move to the next page. We're a little bit over time, and I want to call on John from Airbuilt to join us here on screen and share your slides. So John, Airbuilt, if you can just request to join the session, we'll have you join here in a second. I see you, John. In case you have any issues, do let us know. But otherwise, in the top right corner, you should be able to share audio and video, and then I can get you onto stage. All right. If John has some issues, I will ask for Pavel's as well from Aramo. In case you're already ready, feel free to share audio and video. There we go. Pavel's spot on. Great. We'll get you to go first, if that's all right with you. If you can share your screen as well, and then we'll get you first, and then we'll wait for John. John, feel free to request sharing, and I will accept you as soon as we're done with. There you go.
I think John solved the problem. I think.
Perfect. All right.
Yeah.
Who's ready? John, you want to go first with the slides? Let's go ahead.
Sure. Or
Pavel,
Pavel can go first.
Yeah, let's
He's
stick
already
to
all set up.
the schedule. No worries.
All right.
Gotcha. Okay. Can you see me?
Yes. Now you need to unmute yourself at the bottom of the screen. And if you share your slides as well. The mute button, if you click on the microphone button at the bottom, you're still muted. You're muted for us. So at the bottom of the screen, there should be a mute audio button. All right. The joy of tech. John, are you still with us? Otherwise, we'll ask Pavel to come back. And you'll still have a chance afterwards.
No worries, but I see that John actually switched off microphone or something like that.
All right.
But
Perfect. Pavel, let's go with you.
Subtitling what he's telling.
Let's go with you, Pavel, and John. Don't worry, we'll get you on stage still, and we just need to make sure that we're efficient. So, Pavel, share your screen and let's go.
Sorry. Just a second. I opened the presentation and it's closed because of I shared the screen. I don't know why it's.
No problem.
Window.
Ready
again.
when you are.
Okay, can you see the screen? It's working. Okay, great. Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Paul Razmaev. I am representing company Aermo, and our mission is to make continuous and precise measurement of greenhouse gas emission from space accessible and free to use. Well, not free to use, but easy to use. Actually, today we already heard that the GHG emission monitoring is quite a big problem, and this is a problem we're addressing. The climate change is a huge disaster for us. We already hear about global warming, new diseases, and actually a lot of organizations are already concerned about GHG emission and their reduction. But only 9% of all these companies are able to measure their emissions comprehensively, even though the error rate for this monitoring is around 40% and sometimes even reaching 70%. Why it's happening? Because currently a lot of emission measurements are done in Excel tables, even though sometimes they're using the advanced machine learning models. All the calculations are based on assumptions, educated guesses, and some theoretical models. Some of the companies are using ground sensors and sensors on premises, sometimes aerial platforms like drones. But even though ground sensors can measure exact emissions, they are on ground. And sometimes the emissions are going up in the air and through the wind, and you're not able to catch all of these emissions. And that's exactly what we are solving with our constellation of satellites with 3 novel instruments on board. It's a camera, spectrometer, and LiDAR instrument. We're bringing this data to the ground, processes with the data fusion algorithms, getting high precision, and getting it able to deliver directly through direct emitters, ESG reporting companies, data analytic companies via API. We are aiming to get the highest possible precision with the lowest possible error rate, 1%, with near real-time data delivery, around 40 minutes, and a precision of 50 square meters. Our novelty is that we developed a proprietary LiDAR system, which is currently TRL5, and with the data fusion algorithms in combination of all 3 instruments will make it possible to actually deliver this data really fast. What would make it possible to measure total carbon footprint assessment very precisely? It will make accessible the localization of greenhouse gas emissions. We'll be able to monitor accidents like leakages from the pipelines, plants, manufacturing facilities, and validate and verify the carbon credits, which are currently mostly calculated in Excel tables, and sometimes companies are paying more than they should be paying, and will be able to save money for them. Our first use cases are we're working with the agriculture, forestry, energy, and industrial monitoring and ESG reporting. We already signed LOIs with the companies who are already analyzing the publicly available data. It's Carbon Space, Life.io, and Kairos. In the pipeline, we have much more companies with whom we are in close contact. And all these companies with whom we signed LOIs, they're struggling to get a really good quality of data from publicly available sources. And actually, the data is updated really, for some of the publicly available data, they're updating once per month, which is not good enough for all these companies. We are aware of other satellites which are already in the space or are planned to be launched. All of them are measuring CO2 or CH4 or both. Some of them already, like Carbon Mapper, they're delayed for several times, and they plan to be launched in the next year. For example, GGSat as well, they already 3 satellites launched and 10 to be launched, but they are measuring only CH4. And all these satellites, except they have only passive instruments like spectrometers and cameras. With all these instruments, you're not able to track precisely, because the passive instrument, you can only measure the concentration of CO2 CH4 on a specific area, but you can never understand where actually these emissions are coming from, because you cannot measure the winds and where they're going. With our LiDAR instrument, we're able to exactly and precisely measure where the CO2 and CH4 is coming from, and it's will access allocate CO2 and CH4 for exactly manufacturing facility, and plants and etc. We see that there are 2 possible revenue streams for us right now. Once we launch our satellite, we are planning to sell raw data, L2 data, to the data analytics companies, ESG reporting companies. And once we prove that our technology is working and we're successful selling raw data, once we launch our remaining satellites, we'll be working on delivering an exact service, intelligence service for direct emitters via subscription. We're planning to charge around 150K per facility for per year for monitoring. Our team exists 3 founders. It's Daria, Eriko, and me. Daria has 7 years of experience in CubeSat manufacturing. She built more than 11 satellites right now. She started with building these satellites on her own. Right now, she's managing a team who is building CubeSats. Enrico Armaldino, he is head of payload, CTO of the payload. He has a huge experience in optoelectronics. He was head of optoelectronics section at the European Space Agency for almost 30 years. He was responsible for building the most advanced LiDAR instruments in the world. One of the latest instruments, it's Aeolus, 1 billion euro mission, thanks to which right now you're actually checking the weather on your iPhones or Samsung phones. The precision of the data is good enough due to work of Enrico. We also have an advisory board who is helping us with the business side of the project and with the technical side of the project. Professor David Rees, he's also godfather of LiDAR systems. Tatiana is experienced in software engineering. She is a professor at the Graz University.
We got to wrap up, Pavels.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Our go-to-market strategy is that currently we're raising 1.6 million, 1 million out of which is secured by a public grant and 600,000 public investment for pre-seed. We already have a term sheet for 100,000 and soft committed 300,000. So if you're interested, let's chat. With this money, we're going to have a flight campaign by the end of next Q3, actually 2023. If everything goes well, in the next few months, we're going to launch a satellite and prove the technology and our concept is working. and have first sales for subscription at that moment. And the fourth step is to deploy the full constellation of remaining 11 satellites and have 50 customers subscribe to our service. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Pavels. Thank you. Over to questions. One brief question per judge, so we can get John back on as well. Who wants to start?
I can start. Thank you, Pavels. I'm curious, just taking a step back, like what is the core technological innovation that makes this possible today in a way that it has not been historically possible? And particularly, how do you think about the unit economics and the cost requirements here and how those ultimately become worthwhile?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Actually, a lot of companies are trying to measure greenhouse gas emissions from the space, like several, and all of them, they're using only one instrument, a spectrometer. And even though the spectrometers they're using very advanced, very precise, they cannot measure exact, allocate the emissions to exact facility because of the winds. And this is a problem we are solving with our novel LiDAR instruments, which we developed on our own. We'll be able to measure the aerosols and their movements. So basically, we'll understand where the wind is moving the CO2 and CH4 emissions. And with this, it's basically like disruptive kind of innovation, which make us possible to allocate the CO2, CH4 emission to the exact facility. It was not a big problem before, like for some reasons, because there was no such a strong regulation regarding greenhouse gas emissions. And right now we see the Green Deal, the Paris deal, that they are like governments are putting like effort towards more precise monitoring, and that there will be much more stricter all these regulations. Because before it was not a problem to have like Excel tables and all these calculations done basically based on assumptions. Right now, people will require real data.
Thanks, Pavels. Yeah. We got to move on to the next question. Any other questions from the other judges?
Just a quick one. So my understanding was that the main differentiation really is that your technology, your satellite technology, can measure where the emissions are coming from. Is that correct? Versus
exactly. If there is a facility, like even the small one, we'll be able to allocate all the CO2, CH4 emission in the atmosphere and where they're coming from. And basically, if there are several facilities nearby, with all current technologies which are in the space or in the ground, you will not be able to track precisely and allocate the overall CO2 emission to the exact facility. And that's where the companies are currently struggling using publicly available kind of space data, Earth observation data. Yeah. And so that's a problem we're exactly solving.
So presumably they'll be able to figure out the concentration as well as the source of the problem, and then they can deal with the source of the problem. So that's where you take a separate. Okay, great.
Exactly. And near real-time data, which we're going to deliver, will be able to make an early warning system for any kind of leakage of pipelines and etc. That was not possible to do it. It's not possible to do it right now.
All right. Shilpi, brief one if you want to. Otherwise, we'll move on and try to get John in again.
Yeah, no problem. We can move on. Thanks for the full explanation.
Perfect. Thanks, Pavel. Appreciate you joining in. And a quick message to John. Let's try once again. If you can share your audio and video, we'll try to get you on screen and hopefully make it work this time around. I know we're at time with the session now, so if any judges do have to leave as well.
Thank you very much, and feel free to drop a message to me. I will be glad.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you, Pavels. Let's try once more. It seems like there you are, John. Hey. It seems like you got very unlucky in the last 24 hours with your laptop being stolen and having to improvise. So it's good to have you here. I know we're all tight on time now. If any judge has to leave, feel free to do that, and we'll try to just get through as much as we can. Still, I'll be here for sure. So, John, if you try to share your screen again, or just go ahead with the pitch without the slides, if that doesn't work.
Yeah, honestly, we might just have to go without the slides. It's
Let's
really
go.
just being iffy. I'm on a friend's iPad. Crazy
Okay.
story. I got
Let's
robbed
go.
last night, and I've been picking up the pieces all morning. And well, I'm comfortable with my voice pitch, so I apologize that you guys will not have a visual right now.
All good. Go
But
ahead.
let's continue. Anyways, I'm John. I'm with AirBuild. You know, I co-founded AirBuild with a few other individuals. AirBuild is an answer for algae growth. What we're trying to do is we see algae as nature's solar panel because it takes in sunlight and carbon dioxide and it releases oxygen. So we believe that it's a natural.
John, you're muted. You need to unmute yourself. It's very unfortunate. It should be even on an iPad, should be at the bottom of the screen, hopefully. It doesn't seem to work. Sorry, John. We can try once more, but if not, I think what we can do is if you share your pitch deck with us and we will share it with the judges if the judges are happy with that, so they can have a look as well. Sorry, John. It's been some unlucky 24 hours, it seems, but now the luck is starting from here onwards. And we'll make sure to introduce you to future pitching opportunities as well. It seems like you're continually muted. Unfortunately, I can't change that here as well. All right. Thanks for trying. Thanks to the judges for joining us as well. Don't forget to fill the judging form as well on Google Forms. And thanks so much for making the time. We are wrapping up this session here now, and we're going back to the main stage. So there's plenty of programming on the main stage, and then we'll have the second round of pitches with a different set of judges shortly after on the main stage that time as well. So thanks everybody for joining, and have a good evening, have a good day, and thanks so much for your time. Thanks, Shilpi. Thanks, Samia.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Mia.
John. Sorry about the tech.
Sorry, John. Please share your deck with me. We'll make sure to get it in front of everyone. All right. See you, everyone.